Oh, great.
Okay, cool. So,
Hello, YouTube, everybody watching. Thank you for being here.
oh,
I'm joined by the amazing, fabulous, fantastic, multidimensional, uber divine Gita Rose. Hello, Gita.
hello, Tyler. Thank you so much for that glorious introduction. It's so fun
Hello,
to.
YouTube. Oh, thank you. Everybody oh, do you have me open? I think I can hear my echo. Joined by the amazing, fabulous, fantastic. It's my past self. That's my karma. That's my past self karma catching up with me.
Hello, Tyler. Thank you so much for that glorious. So playing. Oh, how fun. Oh,
Yeah. So, oh, do you have me open? I think I can hear mine. Yeah, is YouTube open on your end? Because if you close it, then I think we'll stop speaking to ourselves. That's my karma. That's my past self karma.
Sorry. I just closed that window. So playing. Oh, how fun. Oh,
yeah. So, oh, this is super funny. Is there anything open on my end that I'm not aware of? Oh, it's me. That was me. It was my, I told you, it was my past self karma catching up with me. It was me. It was another browser was open where YouTube was present. And yeah, that's hysterical. So, oh, I think I know what happened. I think when I clicked like go live on YouTube, I think it probably automatically opened that browser. It's like the one I don't use. But regardless, we don't have to analyze how that funny technological anomaly happened because it happened and now we're here.
We are here. I'm trying to share the link, but not just froze. So I'm just going to be here with you because I was trying to share it on Facebook, but I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, wait.
I want to do it too.
Yeah.
Because I can always edit this a little bit, and like even though the live thing will have this really funny tech moment,
it's cute though. It's real life, you know. It's all of the different versions of ourselves.
Yes, I completely agree. Okay, bam. Okay, Gita, we're gonna share this to Facebook now.
Okay, I think I did it as
well.
Oh,
You did it? Oh, excellent. We got both of us there. Okay, so fun. Let me make a little post. Paste.
I don't have my emojis.
Okay, cool. Okay. So
faster than me. Oh, technology.
I know. So Gita, how have you been? How is life going for you?
Oh, it has been so good. Thank you, Tyler. It's been it's just a beautiful space to be, even with everything going on, you know, right now. And always I just take it back to being in the appreciation for the present moment, you know, like it really almost has gotten to the point where it's like stereotypical, but that really paired with the formula and with following our joy is all that we really need, you know. So I'm just so grateful to be where I am in the world and to have my health and to continue to explore many concepts and contact activations, which we can get into during this fun chat of ours. But yeah, I'm so good and I'm so grateful and I'm so excited to continue to use this time for the utmost amount of positivity possible. And yeah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I have been playing around with a bunch of different subjects in my life, like learning a lot about Taoist meditations and astral projection activities to essentially receive information from astral beings, which has been quite a fun adventure because I find that those messages can be very interesting. Sometimes it'll come through as predictions. Sometimes it will come through as life advice or information. And that was something I played with particularly on that like Lionsgate day, which I know we were kind of joking about earlier. But I had a fun astral projection into a space where I got some interesting messages from beings. We'll see if they come true. I'm kind of just like letting that unfold, you know? But I have been super well. I mean, that's kind of like the action stuff of what I've been up to. But yeah. I really agree with what you said because I feel like everything prior to this interesting collective moment of transition we're in has sort of been like training for this moment, because right now kind of is that train track split where if people aren't aware of it, their energy and their belief systems can take them into directions that they might not really prefer to go into. And it kind of takes this like spiritual, playful Jedi mentality of like, oh yeah, like feel good, pick that which is most exciting for me, and just follow this and stay in that state of joy, like no matter what happens. Then you can align with the train track. And I think that's really the needle in the haystack with this collective situation, right? When we can align with that, then we can find that needle in the haystack super easily, and we can sew ourselves a quilt of preference and divinity. So, yeah, I love it. This is really like a funny testing ground's a weird word, but it's kind of a funny testing ground like of the basics and how well we can stay aligned with the basics.
Yeah, and testing, it is that. And it's also like just a further embodiment of knowing what we know. And for me personally, and this kind of can take us into different ideas that we were discussing earlier, but for me personally, it's been the really interesting challenge and desire to stay really focused in my day-to-day expression, in providing sessions, making videos, doing different content, but getting really nice, beautiful local foods, really kind of like staying in my home area, spending a lot of time out in nature, and knowing that that is my true deep desire, and working through playing with my own belief systems that I feel arising within me about perhaps not looking at a lot of the online stuff, of like having a bit of like truly going into this kind of like isolation phase, right? And not being overly concerned with looking at all of these different narratives or being aware, and then like riding this interesting wave of being like, okay, well, I do want to know a certain degree of what's going on because it's kind of fascinating and interesting, or oh wait, interesting, is that my belief system because I feel like I need to know what's going on, and like riding this kind of wave just in terms of where we're focusing and how we're focusing. And for me, it's been the continuing affirmation that it really is my desire to kind of go into this other world as we really tune in deeper into ourselves and perhaps stop looking at any of the narratives that are happening right on social media or whatever. In my experience, there's been this shamanic invitation to really connect to extra dimensionals, to go in deeper, to commune with the land and with Gaia and the Fae. And it, you can, and to a certain degree, I kind of hold both places, but I notice that I'm very consciously going into this invitation of these different shamanic realms that for me lends itself to not looking so much at all of the different narratives happening, and in ways how that's actually like way scarier, you know?
So interesting. I love that perspective you're sharing, because I was playing with that for a while in the sense of focusing more on these like shamanic, more nature-based narratives that come from our sixth sense and our interacting with the planet. And as I was doing that, I was also kind of removing myself from the Facebook world. And what I noticed was I was like so much happier. And I think one of the biggest things that has occurred recently is I have reintroduced sort of that awareness of the Facebook narratives back into my life. And it's trippy because I understand that each narrative that's presented, each story, right, is its own reality with its own energy. And for it to actually have an effect in my life, in my reality, I have to manifest it, right? I have to align with it, right? And crystallize it. But at the same time, I'm like, geez, it's almost like spending a lot of time in a place that's like not really my passion, not really my joy. And just being in that environment in and of itself is sort of, I feel like, a form of negation of what I actually prefer, which is this like very organic perspective, because it kind of is akin to that idea of giving one's power away. It's like if we're going into Facebook, we're going into the news, and we're attempting to like figure out what's going on through indulging these sources. It's like, well, what about like what your inner voice says is going on? Like, when did that become not as important as like a newscaster or as like a Facebook group or as even like another being who's maybe channeled? It's like, when did all of this become more important in terms of understanding what's happening than one's own perspective? And right, it is kind of that balance, because understanding what other people are pointing to can help us to create our own perspective. But I think it really is that idea of, using that information as sort of building blocks like Legos to make our own structure, or
Yeah.
as like this sort of mental indulgence of like, oh, I just need to see and consume content. So I think those are very different energies, and it sort of takes that Jedi, I think, mentality, right, or just that really discerning eye to differentiate between those two energies.
Absolutely. Yeah, so beautifully said. I totally agree. And yeah, again, kind of going back to the point that we started when we first popped on, is finding that, as you said, the Jedi space, or the true knowing of the mastery, or applying all of the tools, techniques, and understandings that we've learned thus far, and knowing how to find the balance in terms of how we are utilizing social media, how we're looking at it. And yeah, honing that and finding that place in the middle where it is really being of service to us. And it's tricky and sticky and fun too, right? Because I think there's a lot of different things that bring up different trigger points for people. Or, you know, this goes to the idea again for me of how I am kind of translating this space of this shamanic invitation. Very much feels like the space of the unknown, right? And I think for a lot of people, we are collectively going through this understanding of like, oh, I might not know exactly what's true, and it may not even be beneficial for me to hold on to a stark belief. It's perhaps more beneficial to kind of find this nexus point, to be the eye of the needle in the haystack, right? And to not give into the aspect of the ego that needs to have classification of things, right? And to me, entering into that space, the wielding, the deep grounding in the unknown is far more rewarding, and that's how we actually get where we want to go. But at first, it's pretty scary. When we are allowing ourselves to just rest in the observation of all truths are true. And it, again, is this really interesting kind of like paradoxical thing, right? Where like you may have your own beliefs about things. There may be certain things that you're like, no, this really is how it is. And somehow it's finding the space to hold both, right? Yeah, it's the path of mastery, really. Again, just going back to that experience, you know, that we're all in right now, is being the true masters of our creation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's, yeah, I think that's really the most important part, is to use the discernment to detect like what is a mental narrative that is of use and what is a mental narrative that's not of use, right? Like some mental narratives are really going to be aligned with our heart's truth and our heart's knowing. And that's a narrative that might be like a good stepping stone, right? It might not be like an objective truth and something that we align with permanently, but it might help us find our own way temporarily. And then there's other narratives that are totally out of alignment with that heart's truth. That might be something that really has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with your life, but because it's popular or because it's eye-catching or because it's new, it might seem like this really intense thing to gravitate to, but it could be an entirely tangential path. Although even that can be alchemized, because you can wake up from that dream and you're like, oh, wait a minute, like I didn't have to pick that. Oh, how awesome. Now I realize like, geez, I use this narrative and my energy to create this whole world. And it was really rich and vivid. It just wasn't what I desired. So now I can use my discernment, my decision making to pick a positive narrative to create an entire experience that's just as real, that's just as vivid, but actually serves me positively.
Yeah, beautifully said. And for me too, I find that it's a big desire and excitement of mine to hold a perspective, a belief structure, and to always perhaps focus on sharing things that can actually be of benefit for people regardless of their belief system, right? Regardless of what side of the camp they're on. Is there a way, especially those of us, I think, that really resonate as hybridized humans, that really resonate with this specific collective, is there a way that we can, if it is exciting for us to do that, to look at information, look at narratives, look at stories, like you're saying, and things that really do serve as a positive benefit, as a stepping stone. And also allowing our observation to kick in, to perhaps play with the idea of looking at our current narratives the way that the ETs look at things, the way that the hybrids themselves look at things, to step into this space of observation to see, oh, where's humanity at? Like where's kind of getting a general consensus of where people are, and allowing ourselves, to the best of our ability, again, if it is exciting, to not necessarily get caught into any specific human narrative, but to begin, especially as the months go along, to play with the idea of really embodying the hybrid aspect of us, and really embodying the new bridge, right? That is each and every one of us that resonate with these ideas. And how would the most aligned versions of the hybrids choose to share and interact with humanity during this time, right? And is there different ways, different thoughts, different sharings, different posts, different things that we can provide through this time that can allow as many people as possible access to more joy, more love, more understanding, more ability to know thyself, regardless of what their perspective is, right? So that's been something that's been really fun, and sometimes quite challenging, because with all of the different layers and narratives that are going on, it seems like that middle way, or that window, is getting smaller and smaller and smaller in terms of like how you can kind of navigate through to share an idea that can potentially blossom as many people as possible. Like, it's been a really fun and exciting experience, because it feels like that passageway is in some ways of looking at it getting smaller and smaller. But then paradoxically, the more that we really dive into that and embody that, and this perhaps also leads to different understandings that you received during the Lionsgate, activate the DNA, right? And really activate that presence, activate the mystic and I'll say it this way, activate even the Messiah in each and every one of us, right? Going really deep into that space actually then allows the experience of the window and of that pathway to get wider as we fully embody it, rather than needing to share or convince anyone of a specific narrative. That sinking into that neutral space then activates the genetic codes within us that just makes it easier and easier to continue to expand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I love too, right? I think the idea of speaking the universal language is really what's important here, because the universal language, in my opinion, is nonverbal, right? We can translate that language with words, but that's like from this deep space of oneness that links all of us. And if we can tune into that, we can automatically just deliver messages that are going to be striking those chords with each person. So regardless of someone's camp, their belief system, if we're speaking to an individual from that place, then we'll always be able to sort of meet them where they're at. And sometimes there's like some key words, I feel like, or phrases that can help to bridge that. Like with a lot of people, especially people I've been hanging out with recently, who are like, man, all this like division and all of this stuff going on, like, I don't know what to do. Like, it's total, they're like, they feel the chaos, right? They feel the wind. And because they have like a baseline spiritual understanding of law of attraction, I can like use that to sort of share with them these hybrid perspectives. It's like, well, like what you're putting out is what you get back. So right now, society is sort of reorganizing itself. It's reshuffling the cards, and to increase the probability, right, of your preferred hand being what you're dealt, it's like stay in that state of preference and act that out, regardless of the uncertainty, regardless of the unknown. Just do it because you love doing it, and you're gonna experience some form of reality that's gonna be representative of that. And it's funny because having that common phrase, right, law of attraction, or that nomenclature, it helps people to, I think, have a point of relation for some of these hybrid ideas. Because without that, I'd have to like break that down to the person. I'm like, well, you see, like your frequency determines what's going to be sort of unfolding around you in a certain way. So that can be like, for a lot of people that are in like a different camp, like completely, that could even be like a little extreme for them. They're like, wait, you mean my inner reality somehow impacts like what occurs around me? It's like, that makes no sense. But if people have like a baseline of spiritual understanding, I find that makes it easier. But even if they don't have that, you can just be like, yeah, I think people are good.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
Like, I love you, these things, that's like the really basic, and that's just as powerful, if not more powerful at times.
Yeah, because those are really the things that bind us, right? Regardless of what political ideas you have, regardless of what you believe, human is human, especially those of us that, and I really do believe that most of us are wanting love and wanting integration and are really good souls that, want integration. And everyone really wants the same things. We all want to be healthy, happy, free, we all want love. We all want the same things. And focusing on those ideas are also, yes, like what you said too, just like going into the space of nonverbal communication, right? And holding that within every fiber of our being when we are going to the grocery store or going to get gas or walking down the street or whatever it is. And in certain areas where we are required right now to wear masks, I do think it's actually extremely potent to have this part of our face covered, and all that you can really see is like the light in someone's eyes, right? And so holding on to those and embodying those energies and frequencies and vibrations that really are the common denominator between all of us, all cultures, races, creeds, belief systems, right? We all want the same things.
Yeah, exactly. Have you had any moments too where you felt like that nonverbal communication, that oneness, really helped you connect with someone who maybe was sort of like a challenging person, or maybe was someone who was really in a different point of view than the point of view you use?
Well, that's a great question. Yes, of course. I know I can't necessarily think of anything in specific, because that's really kind of how I live my life all the time, in terms of holding that space within me and knowing that I can translate whatever I need to say, how I need to say it, how I need to move. I know that my higher self is always in orchestration with whatever higher self of the individual I'm in interaction with. And at this point, it's just part of my being to be able to kind of shift and counter and to be able to dance with them. And I learned pretty early on in my remembering of my ET connections that convincing anyone what I'm doing, I'm just trying to convince myself of something that I'm still processing. And I learned pretty early on that that was the core of what I was doing of, if I'm, yes, and in ways it is coming from this really beautiful desire to share what we understand, because chances are it could really help that person if they were able to absorb that information. So it is coming from a very earnest and organic place of wanting to share what we know, right? But then also, I think the core underneath that is still aspects of our being that are wanting that external reflection and validation, that if I can see the other version of this human receive this idea, then on some level I'll know, I must be right, this is real, this is a validation of my experience. And I learned that really early on in my journey, and also then really saw the extreme detrimental effects that my vibration can have when I am, in a sense, forcing a belief or needing even to offer an idea, not even forcing a belief, but needing to be like, here, do you want to look at this? I noticed the almost detrimental effects that it had on people.
Yeah.
So I learned within the last few years, really a lot within the last 5 years or so, to really just be in this space again of the dance of the individual, and to know that if they are really ready to receive certain teachings, ideas, concepts, they're going to ask me specific questions. That things are going to unfold in a really organic way. And once I really deepened into those types of knowingness within myself, I don't really have challenging interactions so much anymore with individuals out and about, especially right now, because I'm really only going places where I genuinely want to go, right? I'm not working at the restaurant job anymore. There's so many different things that have changed in my day-to-day life where I'm not even putting the same experiences to interact with people, let's say at the restaurant, right? When I was like working customer service, that would be a little bit more like, oh, you know? So yeah, I think the more that we fully relax into knowing thyself and knowing what we know to be true for us, just the easier all communication becomes with other individuals, because we're just in a really clear, authentic communication with ourselves, right? Yeah. What about you? How has different interactions been for you in this journey process of the last few months?
Yeah, I think it's made me more honest with how I speak to people. Like I feel like nowadays, I think coming from that hard place, I like don't mind like sharing with people, like if I'm going through something or if I have a desire or if there's something that I just really feel I need to express. I find I have, for me, this like very open sense of freedom and being able to communicate with people. And some of those people would be like parents or family members, or just people who I like really wanted to like me. You know, I'd speak to them in a certain way that would keep this like positive attitude going, but might not have been maybe illuminating certain things that were really important for me to express. So I think that that space of open-heartedness and love really helps us to be able to, at least for myself, it's helped me to be able to share much more freely and transparently with people, which is awesome because I feel like the more I can share that way and like not hold back, be like, yeah, like this is like what I'm feeling, this is like what's going on, the more it helps me receive people whom are also just going through anything without trying to force an idea down their throat or trying to convince them of anything. It's like I can hear them and just be like, dang. And I can have that moment of just relating to them of like, wow, like that's really positive what happened. That's really crazy what happened. And it's like nice to be able to like share and be received with like no agenda attached. And just that like illumination of the subject matter, really. Because I feel like when that stuff is shared and people are just observing it neutrally and they're like, wow, that's really interesting, the value in it, which is why it was desiring expression in the first place, then can get illuminated. And I feel like it becomes this like very subtle or very obvious learning experience for everybody involved in those kind of conversations.
Yeah, and I get so excited just aligning with amazing synchronicity just out in the world with people, and perhaps this has probably happened to you too, and I think more and more it's happening to more of us, where people know that they can ask us certain questions, right? So the face covering that I use most of the time is a bandana that has the constellations on it. And so I was at the grocery store, and the girl who was checking me out was quite young, maybe in her early 20s. And I could sense her curiosity. I could sense her opening to my energy. And when I was doing the money and like giving like a moment of arigato for like thinking that I can afford those like playthings, and I really kind of like expanded out like my energy of appreciation. And really when I entered into that space, which is a practice that I have when I buy anything, really, I just go into that space of appreciation. She asked me, oh, is that, oh, it's the constellations. I thought it was like the zodiac on your bandana. And I was like, well, it is. The zodiac is part of the constellations. She's like, oh. And then she goes, do you believe in aliens? And I was like, yes, I do, as a matter of fact. And I went into like really briefly about like what I do and who I am. And And there were people that were still wanting to, you know, come to the checkout line to you know, to do their thing. So I was very aware simultaneous of like all these different energies happening. And I just handed her my card. I've started like having business cards with me for these exact moments now, where I just handed her a card and I said, look at my stuff. If you're curious, you might be, you know, you're curious. So go check this out. And then I also said to her, I think levels of these understandings of who we are and where we come from is a big part of why we're creating everything that's happening right now in terms of the pandemic. And she goes, oh yeah, I agree. And she like leans in to me and like looks down. She's like, because they made us. The aliens made us. I was like, yeah, they did. And I was like, here's my card. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you soon. And synchronicity keeps providing when every time I go to that store, this was about a month ago, every time I go to that store, it's Jade. Now I know her name. Jade is usually my my individual that helps ring me up. So we have many different exchanges of information with each other. And I think more and more that's just happening to so many of us, is just being in that state of knowingness for ourselves. We emit this vibration where people just know that they can ask us questions. And we're like, hi, yeah, right, yeah, come this way, right? Have you had experiences like that for yourself?
I've had it happen to me in ways that I think are more sort of my constitution in a certain sense. Like I find that my persona, I mean, you have a great persona too. It's very like attention grabbing, like you're very voluminous in awesome ways. And like you'll sing. I notice when I'm in stores though, like when people ask me what I do, I'll just like kind of do that. Or I'm like, oh, I like channel ETs. It's my favorite thing. And I've been doing it for years and all this stuff. And then it will like draw in other people whom are like interested in that like pretty instantaneously. And it can be super surprising because I'm like, whoa, like people have the courage and just the drive to learn more about this, like in public, like they're in front of other people, like approaching the guy who's like saying he like talks to aliens, you know? And I've had that happen for sure. It's interesting though, using the mask as that sort of symbol to align with, how would I even describe it? The situations in your life that are of the quality of image that the mask represents. That's a cool way of doing it. And I played with that for a little bit, where I like was getting the regular medical masks, right? Like the white ones that are a little bit more hard, sort of those flimsy ones. And I just got like markers and was like decorating it. And that was something I was playing with for a while. But unfortunately that mask got lost, and then I kind of got, you know, distracted and did other things. But I've definitely had fun experiences with that, and letting the clothing or the nonverbal communication sort of be this invitation for people to come and approach. And that's great. I mean, it's fun. It's fun to see how receptive certain people are too, because I think the clothing is one level. And then I remember being at a party one time, and we were doing this like just eye gazing activity. Like everyone in the party was doing this eye gazing. There was probably like 30 people, give or take, that were doing it. And I remember this like one woman's like eye gazing, and then afterwards she's like, "Can I have a hug?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And she hugs me, and she was just like, "Your energy feels amazing." I was like, "Really?" I'm like, "You could feel that?" I'm like, "I didn't know." I was like, "I thought I was the only one that could feel my own cheek," because almost no one, at least in my bubble, I feel like on the East Coast, it's like a little less psychic out here for most people. But I was so like touched to see somebody just through like, she happened a few times where people will touch me and they're like, "Dude, I feel great." I'm like, "Oh, good." But I think that's a great example of the nonverbal communication, how touch can be a really powerful form of that, and how even that, like their nervous system just directly coming into contact with ours, can transmit all of this energy from our reality to them. So they start to get a sense of what these energies are like, the hybrid energies, or just the energies of passionately living.
Yeah, beautiful. It's interesting too that, and this maybe leads to another topic, right, about beliefs, right, really creating what we see. It's interesting that perhaps, and I do think that it is a level of reality that certain places may have more kind of, you know, psychic awareness, or it being more so part of the culture than other places. But also I'm just curious, like what level of that maybe is also a belief system within ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And because again, for me, I feel like sometimes I have a very different perspective of perhaps what it feels like to feel really different. Not that I don't understand it, because I do, but the more that I allow myself to just fully be who I am, the more that I am reminded of experiences that I learned from being in theater when I was a really young age that build upon the experiences that I remember from being in interaction with the hybrids and different dream experiences or contact experiences that I've had, where because people in general are responsive to authenticity, right? To someone who feels really comfortable in their skin and their environment and their ability to express, right? Which I think with all of these things going on, many humans are already experiencing a type of compression around their ability to express, right? And then as these different challenges, these different levels of initiation get put on us from all of these different signs, we're even deeper and deeper experiencing this state of compression of our expression. And there's, again, this is me just being like super honest and authentic, where there's a level of me that realizes like, I don't think I ever fully had the conditioning maybe that a lot of people have in terms of the fear of expressing themselves coming from the drama community, right? Like being like one of the theater kids, like you're friends with everyone. You're totally okay with like being weird and like over the top and like amazing. It's just like who you are, it's what you do. And we get really strong in being able to be just so deeply authentic with our expression. And then from there, because we are emitting this really clear energy that is just freedom, right? And just the wabi sabi and the little nuances of everyone, right? Then it's human nature to pick up on that. And we can call it psychic awareness. We can call it ascension symptoms, but we can also see it just as the human core wiring to respond to something that has life and energy and enthusiasm and expression, right?
It's interesting because I would argue it is culture, because I feel like at least in my reality, I'm here in New Haven, Connecticut. Shout out New Haven, great space. What's crazy is I feel like I like overly exude this energy like pretty continuously. And we don't have to wear masks like in public, so there's people passing each other on the streets. And I find like in order for someone to truly respond to my energy in like a really positive way, I have to overtly be like, hey, I'm gonna show love to you. Like I have to literally like vocally project into their reality for that sort of public display of like, oh, this is good to happen. Because most people I find here are very in their bubble. And most people won't necessarily talk to one another right off the bat unless they kind of know each other, unless someone's got like a dog or a baby or something, you know what I mean? Something really cute that's full of life, right? But I feel like those are kind of the moments where in some places it's acceptable because I have definitely, and I've been talking to people about this too. Like I did a session for a fella today who is in a country where he's just like done everything I can to like shift the belief systems here and like change my actions, change my energies. Like, and still I feel like I'm moving against this like collective current that's just like an old paradigm. And he's like, I'm not judging it to the best of my ability, but it's not what I want. And he's like, I want to move and I know where I want to move. And I know what the people like are there. And I think there is this sort of diversity in culture in different places. And I think it brings me back actually to something you were sharing about the importance of picking our location where we live, because I think that we can align with places that maybe are like a little conservative, not in the political sense, but in like how people are expressing themselves. Or you can like live in places where people are more like, yeah, like we're in this together and we're not afraid to show it. And I think there are different cultures worldwide that sort of will gravitate to those kinds of camps of expression. And I think that's one of the reasons we're drawn to places. Like, I know it's a big reason why I personally want to leave the East Coast, because I just feel like it feels like, unless you know folks that are like about consciousness or about like love, it's almost like living in like a desert kind of, like, especially being like a non-Yale person, because Yale New Haven's here. There's that vibe of like, wow, like if I'm like not in that bubble, I have to like really go out on a limb, and there's only so many scenes. Like, a lot of scenes here are like either like academic or like party bar scenes. And then there's like a small window of people that are into like plant medicines and consciousness, but that's like a much smaller aspect of the populace. So I do think there's so much that you can do with belief systems about changing your relationship to a location. But I think at a certain point, when you change those beliefs enough, then you actually have to move to experience the manifestation of those beliefs fully.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept, and I think it always, again, right, is the both moment, right? And it is, yeah, I love what you said. You have to change the beliefs. We get there, we get to a certain point, and then there is kind of like the external move or the action that's needed to kind of solidify it. But like, also, it really is always too shifting the internal self, right? And then aligning and seeing a different reality. And I think potentially being able, I know in my experience, to hold a space for different communities or different individuals to surprise you. Just because someone is from an academic culture doesn't mean that they're not equally as spiritual or as excited about progress or expansion than someone who is into plant medicines. They're just speaking a different language, right? And I think sometimes we get caught up in definitions of what we think community really needs to look like. In a way, it's kind of like we get really, we have blinders on in terms of like, oh, well, these are party cultures, or these are, everyone can hold the capacity for different ways of talking about spiritual philosophical concepts, right? And I think there's a level of allowing people to continue to surprise us. And again, I fully own that I'm coming from a very different experience of that just because of where I grew up, right? I can say that because it is potentially easier for me to have that belief because I've grown up in an area that is just locationally different, right? So it's like, yeah, it's very subtle in its nuances, right? And it really, at the end of the day, is just both. But I totally own that I may have a very different experience of it, again, because I grew up in the theater community, which is just different. It's just people are cultivated and celebrated for their differences, right? And always being able to see the power in many different ways of telling story, because you're trained to be an artist and a storyteller, and always seeing and looking at, different ways to embody human expression. Then combined with, I live in Marin County, which is one of the most affluential, artistic, kind of liberal, progressive areas, I think probably in the world. So I have a really different experience of it just because of where I've grown up. Yeah.
Right. Super interesting. And yeah, I think it's fascinating to, look at all of the differences and to like draw from one another. Cause I'm like, wow, like if Gita can do that in her reality, right? And like have these, really fun connections with people maybe she's just met, I'm sure I can do that here. And it does happen here for sure. It definitely happens here. I think I have a desire just for more of it, and I think that, I know for me, certain communities that sort of aren't this area really represent that for me, but I hear you though. It is absolutely possible to have these really intimate and deep connections with people that are, in totally different perspectives, on totally different paths, like for sure, right? Because we all have that same fundamental core. So that's always like the one thing we can always orbit around and relate to. Yeah. Like all else fails, like, oh yeah, we both exist, and like don't know necessarily what's 100% going on. Like, how beautiful. Like let's orbit in that that black hole of the unknown, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think there is a big part in certain individuals, and this might be a fun segue for another topic as well, certain individuals being drawn to certain areas because it may be in the years to come a lot more relevant for many of us to be in specific areas. And to actually really build these different communities or enclaves or camps or whatever. I think a lot of us are getting that specific excitement to go to certain areas. It's almost like feeling the drumbeat going, right? And us being called to these certain areas to, yes, take the action to mirror the belief systems that we've already shifted within ourselves. And then there seems to be like the invitation of something more, right? Of needing to listen to Gaia, to be in specific areas, of tapping into our connections with the hybrids and tapping into perhaps what certain aspects of the hybrid children may really want or desire. And so I think that's another very specific layer to it as well, is potentially preparing ourselves to be locationally situated for some possible timelines. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a big thing for sure. For sure. And that leads us to a really exciting thing, because right now, while there's only so much travel people can do, me and you are putting together the Hybrid Dream Camp, which is super exciting, where me, you, and our guides are going to be delivering transmissions and teachings to assist people in exploring what it is to live life as a lucid dream, and how to induce positive states of being so they can stay in that frequency of their preference despite the challenge. And I'm super pumped to put this on with you, because I think we're going to see a lot of people coming together, and I think we'll see a lot of contact experiences that happen sort of all around the world during this time, because we have so many people that are joining in from like all over the place. Like, not everyone joining in is from the East Coast, from the West Coast, from the United States. So it presents a really unique opportunity to really share with everyone these collected ET energies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. I'm so excited to put this on with you and Yahaira as well, and our guides, of course, and everyone who is in the co-creation with us of setting up the camp, right? Like, it's going to be a co-created experience, and Ryok and Bella have some specific offerings that they're wanting to go into, and then also holding the space for the unknown, right? To take flight. And I really like the idea, honestly, of playing with the what we have at our disposal, right? Like, we could probably create a reality where, you know, we hold some type of physical camp somewhere. Maybe we do it in like Ohio, like by the Serpent's Mound, and we meet somewhere in the middle, and people could fly and could get there, right? Like, I feel that how, like, okay, even with everything that's happening right now, we could create that reality. But there's something that feels so fun and inspirational in terms of really following the path of least resistance and allowing ourselves to fully embrace and play with the systems and structures that we have created. Kind of like the idea, again, if you are required in certain areas to wear a mask, it might be the path of least resistance just to wear the mask. But then, like, can you have an alien on your mask? Can you have a dolphin on your mask? Can you, like, how can you fully utilize it and just have as much fun with it as possible? So just in terms of doing this as an online retreat, I just think is so much fun, because I feel like we are just making the best of what we have at our disposal. And then on top of that, because things are structured in this way, we do have this really beautiful ability to act again as these anchors and beacons and transmitters of this hybrid energy, or of the, you know, the one love energy. But it does feel very specifically like the hybrid family during this time that is excited to start participating more with us, and individuals being located at different areas on the planet and really tuning into Gaia's grid and what can we manifest together in terms of perhaps these different actual, you know, more recognizable contact experiences. We'll see, right, what actually comes about, but that window for that does appear to be open right now. There appears to be a shift in how we can really propel and increase the probability of contact in the near future, perhaps closer than we thought.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that we are on essentially a very high frequency timeline where a lot of the things that I know I'm desiring, you're desiring, and other people of this timeline are desiring.
Yeah.
I think that it's all on this timeline much more proximal than it is for folks that are on timelines that are maybe going in the same direction but aren't as high frequency. Because with the higher frequency, you get a faster rate, you get more frames, and you get more acceleration. So I think that these energies really do induce more proximal experiences of contact, of change collectively, and of change within ourselves. I think most importantly, because that's where really all the action is, right? It's like, in my opinion, right, it's like the external is just kind of the side effect of the internal process. So the high frequency really helps the inner self evolve, and then you just get all this beautiful external transformation to mirror that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And being able to do that together in a framework where, Bella and Ryoke are going to be offering 3 nighttime, like contact meditations, and then 2 Gaia activations. So it's so fun to create the structure of community for people to go and have their experiences potentially, and maybe synchronistic things happen on this accelerated timeline. We are able to potentially create more physical reflections of the internal alignment, and then be able to come back and like share and help integrate, or to reflect to each other, oh, I really did see the same thing. Like, I know in my experience, it's so helpful to have someone with you, right, that's also seen the craft, or to have someone with you that witnessed, the telepathic exchange, to be like, no, yeah, that really happened, and like, let's be here together, and to ground that aspect of us that is in ways still learning to accept that this amount of unconditional love is real, that things are this miraculous and psychedelic, right? There's still the aspect of us that needs community, like we were talking about before, needs that to be able to fully receive the greatness of what each of us are. So to be able to have that space through the online retreat, and kind of coming and going, and being able to shift and have these different experiences, or have dreams, and then come back and really mirror and hold that space for each other, much like you would in a standard, retreat that's at a location, but being able to do it on the inner web, right?
Exactly. And this will be fun because who knows like what this can manifest into, because I know I have the intention of creating a few of these with you, and it would be fun to see how this can evolve over time. Like, I know for the next few months, it seems like online gatherings will kind of be what people do. But after that, I mean, I've already seen some places here on the East preparing for, by October, in-person things. So people are starting to really open back up to that as a possibility. So it'll be really exciting to see, number one, how these online connections unfold for people during this camp, and then what that can turn into as our society opens back up, because this could turn into people having friends on the East Coast, friends on the West Coast, because I think it's just beautiful to really create this common thread to unify so many people together, to have amazing experiences where they're going to be talking to our guides with Q&As, where they're going to be going through the contact meditations. And then also we're going to be doing a bunch of group exercises too. I know the Taoist stuff I'll be teaching is going to be exercises that include like group energy healing things, and self-wellness techniques like the inner smile. There's so much that this event is going to have, and it's just such a cool bonding experience for a lot of folks. So I'm very pumped for it.
Yeah, I'm so excited as well. And I fully agree. This is something that I'm super excited to continue doing. And again, it feels relevant for it to be online or in the interweb for a bit. And then absolutely it going into physical locations at some point feels not only exciting, but it feels probable and feels like relevant. It feels needed. Bella, in her sharing for the promo, pretty much alluded that from her perspective, like, this is part of the protocol. doing these different retreats and gathering in spaces and practicing these different techniques together and really building up our collective energy, whether it's the Tao techniques. We're also going to be doing a little bit of breath work and yoga techniques, and all of these different things are just sitting together and receiving the same words, right? Builds this collective power that feels just necessary and part of the protocol, part of the steps and stages for us being able to ground in our collective presence enough to really start having some of these family members and kids really start landing or having bigger, broader, experiences. Again, it's going to be in steps and stages. I don't think our first physical retreat we're going to have full-on landings, but definitely, some good sightings and things like that. But
totally.
And I feel like that's a little bit down the road, and more so it's about being able to cultivate that collective dream experience. And for a lot of people, I think, to know that really they're not alone. I know that we have a lot of people that are mutual clients or friends or families or whatever, but there still really seems to be this deep desire in us, and even in like you and me, right? I think the reason why we have so much fun connecting and sharing our beliefs is it just further allows us to really know, like, we're not crazy. I'm not making this up. There's people that are having the same experience, and being able to like literally see the Zoom room, to see the thing and to see all the different names, and to know there's that many people that we are so deeply connected with, really seems to be part of the first stages. And then of course, receiving the techniques and beginning to apply them, and kind of taking this conversation full circle of, I think everything that we're offering in this retreat is what we feel, what has worked for us to be able to maintain that space of mastery, right? Through this, to maintain that space of the middle ground, right? To be in that, that Jedi space that we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, well said. Well said. So for those listening that are interested in this camp, me and Gita are now selling tickets for it. And if you are interested in that, you can email me at tellison700 for tickets. And for the 3 days, which is the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, it's $300 US, which is going to include the whole shebang. Really, you're going to be able to partake in all of these events, and it's going to be a pretty immersive weekend. It'll be at a pace that'll be very relaxed. And with that relaxed pace, there's going to be a tremendous amount of content and playtime. So I definitely encourage you all to participate, because I think it'll be fun. And I'm excited to share my own gifts and to share Ryok for that event. And I'm so excited to hear all the crazy, juicy transmissions that'll be coming through me and you, Gita, during this time.
Yeah, thank you for that good plug. Way to go, Tyler. Well said. Nicely condensed. Yeah, and it's really going to be a beautiful weekend, and I'm so excited to be able to create this space with you and to share it with other people, and to feel the collective community camp together. And yeah, I'll be really interested to see what they go into. Because we've only gotten little bits and pieces, right? Just kind of, which is usually how it works for me, as I maybe just get the title and I have a loose understanding of where we're going. But again, going back to the idea, and this was a synchronicity that I noticed, I was getting the information as we were preparing different titles and topics and talking to each other. I was getting the information for myself, like, oh, there's a shift happening. Like, there's a window opening up. Like, whoa, this idea that is being birthed from our guides and from Tyler and I is coming at a really, really important time, potentially, because there's something that's happening in terms of us really being able to embody and act from and really push the probability of contact. And then I'll say at Bashar Communications, we are in no way officially affiliated with Bashar Communications, but I noticed that they released their upcoming title, which is a very similar concept. So I am very curious as well to see what Ryok and Bella are going to bring through in terms of continuing to perhaps prepare us for this window, and to go back again to the idea of knowing that not only are we safe to, but that we need to embody the expression of ourselves, in whatever way that that looks, and the true innate freedom of that, while still acknowledging the reality of different constraints that we have around us, right? Acknowledging that as being a relevant, necessary part of the story that's coming from all of these different directions, but has a sense of validity, like it's real. And how do you really become the diamond through that and know that we are free and need to express ourselves? And then how does that really continue to propel this train track that we're on? So yeah, it's going to be really, really fun to see what they bring through, especially feeling this window opening up.
Amazing, amazing. Well said. And I'm absolutely looking forward to it too. Well, Gita Rose, this has been a blast to play with you and to talk to you. Thank you for hanging out with me. It's great to see your cozy, flowery pillow place. It's so awesome.
Yes, likewise, and thank you for inviting me to do this little chat. And I think this is also something too that we can continue to do, right? Because I feel like we only kind of scrape the surface of different conversations that we get into when we are wrapping as ourselves. And I think it's a fun thing for us to be able to share with people. So I think we should make this a continuing sharing as well, because I just have so much fun talking with you, and we could go for hours and hours, but we'll see how people respond to this, and then we'll go on the next. Yeah,
I think it'll be positive. But yeah, I'd love to do more of these. And yeah, with the cool talks we have, there's like tons of juicy content that comes through. So more to be continued here in this fun world of Gita Rose and Tyler Ellison co-creating.
Oh, and then coming up on this Monday, right? What is the date?
Oh yeah, this Monday is the 18th. No, 17th.
Yes. So this Monday, the 17th, Bella and I are going to be on Ask Ryoke. So people can have the ability to chat with them. And is that something that has a small ticket fee, or is that one?
That one's no cost, so people can just show up to that. And that'll be streamed here on the Help Thyself YouTube page. So that's going to be this Monday at the 17th. I'll get back to y'all on the time, but we'll make some Facebook announcements
Sure.
to really crystallize that. But yeah, tune in for that, and you can submit questions, and then Rio can answer them. And then you'll be bringing Bella through?
Yes.
Is that right? Yep. So yeah, so your questions will also get answered by Bella, channeled by Gita. So it'll get two amazing perspectives on a multitude of different topics, which is always very exciting. I've loved doing co-channelings with you before, and I'm happy it's now becoming a semi-regular thing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's so cool, and it feels so relevant for people too. And again, kind of like in the larger archetypal story, like you and I, in our perspectives and in our conversations, will really flank each other a lot of the times. Like we really kind of like hold that space to move things back and forth. We always agree essentially, but we like to take different polarized views of things as ourselves. And I feel that Bella and Ryoke do that in their own way as well. And it feels really beautiful and organic and natural in terms of holding the space for different ways that the feminine and the masculine expresses itself, right? And not to say that you're always expressing the masculine view. We go, we go ways with each other. It's really beautiful and feels very core within a type of expression. And yeah, so I'm so excited to continue the collaboration and the sharing. Absolutely.
Yeah, same here, my friend. It's gonna be a blast, and
so much fun.
So much to look forward to.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna sign off for now. I'm gonna stop the live, but everybody, unconditional love, joy, and appreciation to you. Thank you for hanging out with me and Gita.
And yeah, just hold that space too of the Jedi, and know that all of us collectively are able to be in the swirling and to be in the support and stability of the chaos that is everything, right? So just one step at a time, nice deep breaths. And then what do we do, Tyler? What do we do?
follow your excitement. That was so funny. That was a great moment. I was like, oh God, wait, this is what I'm supposed to know this. What? Hold on.
In each and every moment, each and
Yeah.
every breath, without what?
I think it begins with an E
Or an I.
or an I. Insistence.
And remaining in an integrative, positive state, regardless of what occurs, right?
Of course, of course. Well said. Well
Pass
said.
the test. We got it.
I did it. I did it. I'm on the timeline. I'm on the train. I'm here. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Tyler. This is so sweet to connect with you. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And we look forward to the continuing co-collaboration with each and every one of you as well.
Bye, everybody.
Aloha. Aloha.